Yo, what's going on everyone? How you guys doing today? Welcome back to another YouTube video. In today's video, we're fully embracing ignitions and following the path of explosions into the endgame. This build pretty much has one goal in mind and is triggering that ignition that will trigger other ignitions and so on and so on, kinda like this. So if you're looking for a build that uses those new mods, you came to the right place, so let's get started. And first of all, before we get into any of them, let's talk about the things that you're gonna need for this build. So the only thing that we're gonna need specifically for this build is gonna be our exotic armor, the Ophidian Spade. This will give us 2 knives for every knife charge. So overall, we're just gonna be able to throw more knives, and that's gonna be a big part of the build. So you definitely wanna have this. So as long as you have that exotic, the build is pretty much gonna work. So let's get into it, and first let's start off with our weapons. So today we're gonna be doing something a little different when it comes to the weapons. We usually start with the exotic, but today I wanna start off with the energy weapon. And for the energy weapon, you're gonna want a weapon that has incandescent and heel clip if you can. So it can be any weapon, a pulse rifle, an auto rifle, the news item that was released this week. As long as it's a weapon that can roll that heel clip incandescent, then it's gonna work with this build. The main reason that we want something like this is because incandescent is going to help us get those ignitions going. All we need to do is get that scorch on the target, and then we can start triggering those ignitions with a throwing knife. And those ignitions are going to spread more scorch, so then we can get more ignitions. Now the heel clip is going to be for a bit of extra safety, since this is supposed to be an endgame build. And also, if you're playing with teammates, there's a very easy way to trigger Ember of Benevolence and get 400% ability regen. Yes, you heard that right, 400%. And we'll talk a little bit more of that when we get to the fragments. But like I said, any heel clipping incandescent weapon will be pretty good. Just experiment with them. I would definitely recommend you give the sidearm a try because it's just the rocket sidearm. It is going to be really good. Now for our exotic weapon, we have the Dragon Spread. This is like the ignition power weapon, so of course we had to pick this up. This is gonna be amazing for doing damage against bigger targets like champions or mini bosses, and it's also gonna trigger a ton of ignitions on not only whatever we put it on, but just things around it. It like spreads scorch all over the place wherever the rocket hits, and thanks to our fragments, those scorch stacks are actually higher, meaning that we're actually gonna trigger even more ignitions than we usually do with the Dragon Spread. The Dragon Spread in this build is basically a free way to get an ignition chain going. If you see a big group of enemies, fire at the biggest target and just watch as the ignitions just stare through all of them. It is beautiful and it's just very satisfying seeing all the ignitions go off. So the Dragon Spread is a must-have. You will not regret choosing the Dragon Spread. And for your kinetic weapon, it can really be whatever you want. Just keep in mind what you ended up going in your energy slot. If you go with like the special sidearm, then your kinetic weapon should be a primary. But if you went with a primary on your energy slot, then you should go for like a rocket sidearm probably on this slot. Now for a super, I was running Blade Rush, but you don't really have to run Blade Rush. You could actually go with any super. You could go with the Marksman Goldie, the Deadshot Goldie. All of them will work fine. Nothing really builds into the super. For our dodge, we're gonna have the Gambler's Dodge, so we can get our melee back whenever we dodge next to a target. Our melees are gonna be very important for triggering ignitions, so we definitely want that. Now for the melee and the grenade. First of all, for the melee, I spent so much time actually messing around with all these melees to see which one was gonna work the best, but I ended up settling on the weighted throwing knife. I know the weighted throwing knife seems to be like the PvP knife, but the weighted throwing knife can do something that the other ones cannot. Whenever you hit a scorched target with the weighted throwing knife, they will immediately ignite. No matter how many scorch stacks they have, they will ignite. So even if they were not even close to igniting by reaching 100 stacks, they will just ignite immediately thanks to the weighted throwing knife. This is going to make it very easy to trigger ignitions. All we need is something to be scorched, and then we can immediately trigger an ignition. This is why incandescent works so well with this build, because it gives us a very easy way to start that chain of explosions. If you have never used the weighted throwing knife, it definitely will take a little bit to get used to since it does have that wind up animation, but I definitely think it's worth it thanks to those instant ignitions on any scorched target. You can even trigger ignitions back to back as long as you keep hitting things with your throwing knife. It is beautiful. Now for the first aspect, we're gonna have on your mark. Precision final blows will give us and nearby allies increased weapon handling and reload speed, and it can stack up 3 times. Whenever we hit our class ability, we also immediately gain match stacks. The extra reload speed and handling for us and our teammates is nice, but the main reason we're using it is for the 3 fragment slots. And the second aspect is gonna be Gunpowder Gamble. My beloved Gunpowder Gamble. This is gonna work very well with this because Gunpowder Gamble is also treated as an ignition. So it's gonna be able to take advantage of all the things that we're using that are related to ignitions. So it's gonna be doing more damage in a bigger area. Our Gunpowder Gamble is basically gonna be like a mini nuke. We throw it into a group of enemies and they all just disappear. It's crazy how big the blast radius on the Gunpowder Gamble actually is. And in the case something survives the Gunpowder Gamble, they'll be scorched, meaning that we can start those ignitions all over again, just by hitting those guys with a throwing knife. So it's both a way of ad clearing and also applying scorch. And since we're gonna be doing so many ignitions and just getting kills with solar weapons, we're gonna be building up that Gunpowder Gamble really quickly. So as soon as you get it, look for an opportunity to actually use it, since you're gonna be getting it back really quick. Now moving on to the fragments, the first one we're gonna have is the Ember of Ashes. Whenever you apply scorch stacks, it applies more. So anything that we do will just apply more scorch stacks. This plus another fragment is basically what's gonna allow us to get those ignition chains going, whether you just keep blowing up over and over again. This is a must have. Now the second part to that is gonna be the Ember of Char. Your solar ignitions spread scorch to affected targets. So whenever something gets hit by that initial ignition, it'll be scorched, and once it gets to enough stacks, it will ignite as well, triggering even more ignitions. These 2 fragments that I just mentioned have to be must-haves. You have to play with them together. You want those super chaining ignitions. After that, we're gonna have the Ember of Empyrean, solar weapon or ability final blows, which then a restoration or radiant. This is just gonna be so we can have constant radiant and restoration up. It's gonna be pretty nice. After that, we're gonna have Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster whenever we scorch something. This is just gonna make it so we always have that class ability, so we can always use it and get our throwing knives back. The regen that you get from this is insane. It basically guarantees that you always have a class ability, meaning that you can always have your knives back. And lastly, we have a fragment that would change whether you're playing with teammates or you're playing solo. We have Ember of Benevolence. Whenever we apply Restoration, Cure, or Radiant to an ally, we'll get 400% increase regen for our melee, our class ability, and our grenade. And this is really good, but it does require teammates. If there's no teammates around, then this fragment just doesn't do anything. So if you're playing with teammates, like in a GM, then definitely go Benevolence. But if you're playing by yourself, you could go with something else. The main ones that I would recommend would be Ember of Eruption for even bigger ignitions. Or if you want to just make sure you always have your grenade up, you could go Ember of Blistering, which is going to give you some grenade energy whenever you kill something with ignitions. Which is something that's going to happen a lot, so you're going to have your grenade back really fast, so you're always going to have that healing whenever you need it. Those 2 are going to be the ones that I like the most when I'm playing by myself. And with that being the last fragment, here's an overview of everything, in case you want to take a look at everything all at once. Now for exotic, we have the Ophidian Spade, just because we get a second knife per charge. So every charge, instead of just getting the 1 knife, we get 2. This will make it so we can always have those knives trigger that initial ignition. We're going to have so much ability regen that getting knives back won't be hard at all. So just kind of toss them out there whenever you want them. Even if you see something scorch across the map, just throw it. Maybe you'll hit it and trigger that ignition. And if you miss it, it's no big deal. So the main point that I want to make is that don't hold on to your knives all the time. Just throw them out there. You'll be fine. You'll get them back really quickly. It also has a secondary effect where our knives deal more damage after getting a final blow with them. And, it's a nice little bonus. It's not really going to matter, because we're just trying to trigger ignitions with the knife, but it's something that the knife can actually do as well. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at our mods. First, we're going to do the armor ones, and then we'll take a look at the artifact ones. For the helmet, we're going to have a harmonic siphon. This is so we can make some ores with our solar weapons. We're going to have 2 out of 3 solar weapons, so we're going to be making quite a bit of orbs. And then we have a special and a heavy ammo finder. The heavy ammo finder, you always want to have it on, just so we can fire a rocket a lot more often, our dragon spread. Now the special finder, you only want it if you're running the special rocket sidearm. If you're not running that as your like main scorching weapon, then you could switch this out to something else. Next up for our gauntlets, we're gonna have fastball, firepower, and momentum transfer. This is so we can get our grenade back faster. This is so we can make orbs with our gunpowder gamble, and this is so we can throw the gunpowder gamble farther away. For our chest piece, pretty much this gives your resistances. This is gonna change depending on what GM you're doing or just the activity that you're doing. Whatever the threat is usually like the one that you wanna stack double of. So I had double arc resist and a solar resist. Now for our gauntlets, we have recuperation, absolution, and scavenger. So we can pick up more ammo, so we can get our abilities back faster with orbs, and so we can heal with orbs. And lastly, for our last item, we're gonna have special finisher, powerful attraction, and reaper. Reaper is so we can make more orbs after using a class ability. Powerful attraction will let us pick up any orbs on the ground when using a class ability. And then lastly, special finisher is again if you went with the special sidearm as your scorching weapon. If you didn't, then you could go bomber or outreach. I would definitely recommend bomber though. Now for the artifact, we want to have counter energy, radiant orbs, solar fulmigation, and then lastly shield crush. With these mods, we're going to be getting some energy every time we stun a champion for one of our abilities. We're going to be radiant every time we pick up orbs of power, and also our ignitions are going to be doing more damage in a bigger area. And then shield crush even gives our gunpowder gamble more damage. So all of these are going to be really good and are going to work very well with our build. And with the last mod, that's going to be the completed build. Now you have it. As always, I'm going to leave a link in the description and in the comments for the build in case you guys want to try the build out. And if you actually do end up trying the build, make sure that you guys come back and just tell me how you ended up liking it. And if you notice some things that I could change to make it better, also let me know in the comments below. I love hearing about that, just so I can improve my builds even more. But this was a very fun build to put together. I definitely messed around with so many different things, different knives, different exotics, just to kind of see what would work best, since I wanted this to be an endgame ignition build. So yeah, I pretty much ended up messing with every single knife and a couple of different exotics. Some other ones did better in like mid-tier content and would make even more ignitions happen, but once I took it up to like Grandmaster level enemies, then it would struggle. So this ended up being the most consistent one to not only trigger ignitions, but trigger that chain of ignitions that clear out entire places. Seeing all the ignitions go off back to back to back just does something to my brain that makes me very happy. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this build as much as I did. I think the knife is gonna take a little bit to get used to. You never use that knife, but with this one you have to be a little bit more careful because it does have that wind up time. But those instant ignitions 100% are worth it. But I don't really see it as too big of an obstacle. It's definitely something that you're gonna get used to after like 15-20 minutes playing with the build. And hitting some long range throwing knives and seeing some ignitions happen is also very satisfying. It's a very satisfying build just in general. With the throwing knives and the ignitions. There's nothing like hitting a long range throwing knife into an ignition, into a chain ignition. Oh, it just goes off very nicely. But anyways, let's wrap it up. Thank you all for stopping today. Thank you all for watching the video. The support in the videos this whole last month has been amazing. So thank you all, and hopefully you will continue to support me. Leave a like on the video if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it, all that stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care everyone, have a good rest of your day. Peace.